Welcome to our sleep-deprived podcast.
Yeah!
With your host, Kara.
And Sarah.
We have no idea what we're doing, so let's get into it.
The first question we're covering is, what is a hero in literature? Kara, what's your answer?
Honestly, I think it would be a person who tries to save something or discover something important. Because that's normally what I think of in a hero.
For a hero, I had mainly the main character that tries to get to the end of the story without dying.
Except normally they do die.
Okay,
so, like...
That's in the sad stories, though.
I have read so many ones where the hero dies, though.
Fair point.
Okay. Then again, that's a little more in keeping with tragic heroes.
Yeah, so on the course of tragic heroes, what do you think one is?
For me, tragic hero is pretty much the bare bones definition, which is tragic hero is a hero with flaws that lead to their final downfall. But they're normally a lot more complicated and interesting than that base definition.
I agree with that. I find them the more dramatic version of a generic hero character.
Mm-hmm.
They have some bad backstory or bad future plans where they die or someone they know dies.
Why have a happy ending when you can kill off all your characters and make your readers suffer and cry and die inside?
You okay?
I've seen a lot of tragic heroes.
So, today we're really talking about the hero Oedipus, the tragic hero Oedipus. And what qualities exactly make him this tragic hero we know? So, one of the qualities we were discussing was, do they meet an obstacle? What obstacles do he face? The obstacles I had were, like, for one, he killed his own father. Two, he plowed the same fields his father once sowed.
Yeah, because, like, they may have implied stuff, but they heavily implied stuff in Greek literature.
Especially since the Greeks already knew about, like, the whole Oedipus story, and then we get this story about, him finding out, and,
That's drama.
That's the obstacle I think he faces. Is there any other obstacles that you believe that are, like...
I think he faced the obstacle of just fate in general, because it's this one dude trying not to commit incest and murder, and he ends up committing the incest and murder unknowingly. And it's just kind of an awful situation all around.
Sounds like a normal Tuesday for Greeks.
Yeah.
I mean, with all this literature, it's like...
Just normal average
bang
Tuesday.
Your wife. Bang your...
No, that's more of the gods.
True.
The gods are more of the incest. In Greek society, it wasn't the normal thing to have incest. It was kind of frowned upon.
Okay, fair point.
Another quality that makes a tragic hero is them trying to reach a goal, which is common in all heroes, tragic or non. For me, one of his goals was trying to find the truth about his lineage and who killed Laius, who was technically his father, but at that point he had no idea.
Yeah. So I had the killing his father part, and I also had him trying to reach the goal of not fulfilling fate. Because the whole thing is like, I can't have fulfilled fate. I just killed a random guy and married this girl. My parents are way over there. I'm not going back home because I don't want to risk it, though.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's trying this whole thing to not fulfill fate when he's actually still fulfilling fate.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the goal that he tried to reach, hence trying to reach a goal.
Tried, failed heavily, but honestly it wasn't even his fault at this point. He did it all unknowingly. And what else are you supposed to do when you think?
His mom wife even tried to prevent him from knowing the truth after she figured it out. When the woman finally put two and two together, and she's like, yeah, no, don't look into that anymore. No.
I mean, ignorance is bliss.
Especially in this story.
There are moments where you just don't want to know.
Speaking of ignorance, what are his tragic flaws? Most tragic heroes have a tragic flaw. So, for the tragic flaws I put for him were the ignorance. Like, the whole time he's like, I couldn't have killed him. Da, da, da. And blindness, because even though the blind guy's literally telling him, hey, you already did this. You already killed your father, and you're already banging your mother.
I mean, both technically.
Yes, technically both. And blindness, like, is a big part of his tragic flaw, as well as ignorance. Is there any other thing that you would have for that?
I had part of it as his anger and his unbelieving of the truth, because in the beginning, he just gets immediately angry
he gets super
at
mad
the
at
prophet.
Creon.
At Creon and the prophet.
Yeah.
Because the prophet says, "You're the one who killed Laius." And he's like, "No, how dare you!" And it just sounds like a giant angry chihuahua.
He's like, "Oh, you and Creon must have planned this so that Creon could take the throne." And then Creon's like, "I don't want the throne. That's too much work."
It sounds like an imposter being accused and then blaming the accuser.
Yeah.
It's really hecking funny when you think about it out of context.
Yeah.
Another tragic flaw of his was just the situation he was put in. I mean, honestly,
it's like the What Would You Do TV show, and where the kids are like being all bad, and the other people are like, "Hey, you shouldn't do that."
He was pretty much set up to end up committing the incest, and it's just awful all around.
I mean, when your mom's such a beautiful person.
He loved his mother.
Oh, that's such a beautiful song. One of the other qualities we talked about were the
realization of the tragic flaw.
The realizing of the tragic flaw. So,
and what happens afterwards?
So, I think that when he realizes the tragic flaw, it's when he gouges out his eyes.
Yeah.
So, it may not have been a rational decision to realizing his flaws, but it was in the moment, let's gouge out my eyes. I've seen my mother.
It was a cathartic one. I mean, when you realize you've been banging your mom for the past while, who knows what happened in those rooms? We don't want to know. Oedipus didn't want to know. Oedipus. He wanted to know, and then once he knew, he did not want to know. He wanted none of that.
Yeah, I mean...
He was like, "I don't want any more. I'm just going to gouge out my eyes and let blood spread everywhere," because that's definitely a detail that the authors must include for us to read.
Yes.
The exact placement of the pins in the eyes, right in the pupils, and the visual of the blood squirting out.
Beautiful. It's just so magical.
It's so magical and so messed up. And just his entire realization is the realization of the tragic flaw.
Yeah. The last quality that we could think of would be if the audience can identify with them, and I said the way the audience can connect with him is through the fact that he doesn't want to accept truth. Most people don't like accepting truth.
A lot of times it's way easier to accept a believable lie than the truth, because truth sucks. It's kind of just a giant bummer all around most of the time.
Yeah.
Believing an easy to believe, nice lie is so much easier and makes you so much happier, but it's still a lie.
Especially in his story.
Yeah.
Would not want to believe the truth. So, another examples of tragic heroes, I would say, would be Lightning McQueen from Cars, because he gets stranded, he has to reach the goal to get back to the race, and it's just a whole calamity. Calamity? Is that
Calamity.
Right? Shush. Where he's just trying to get back to the race, but they're making him fix the roads, then he has to practice, and then he has to find a way back. Did you have any ideas of, the tragic heroes that you thought of?
So I am a little kid at heart.
Yes.
I will never stop liking My Little Pony Gen 4. Or is it Gen 5? Gen
4? 5? I don't know.
The My Little Pony Friendship is Magic one, because that one in my eyes is the best one. Whatever. Anyway, there's a character called Chrysalis, who is one of the villains. So that kind of knocks her out of the main character part. However, she meets a lot of the other criteria. First of all, it's Queen Chrysalis, and she comes from noble birth. She also is trying to reach a goal as a villain, but still trying to either conquer other areas for her kingdom in the first part of the show, or later, once her entire changeling empire abandons her to reform, she starts trying to gain them back. which is unsuccessful, like
Oedipus.
Oedipus's plan, but it's still a goal all the same. Her tragic flaw is her villainy, and later on, her mania and general loss of sanity. Once she loses control of the entire empire she's had, she no longer has any power, and she starts to go cuckoo from it. Even making copies of the changelings through hairs. And it delves into this whole thing.
Yeah.
Never realized the tragic flaw, but But in my opinion, she makes a tragic hero.
Yeah,
if
I
you
think that's
look at
probably
the
way
story
better than
from
my
her
Lightning McQueen example.
Slightly better than your
I
Lightning
mean,
McQueen
he
example.
was so prideful though in the beginning. I think that would be his tragic flaw. He's like, oh, I'm the best racer. Yay.
I think he's more of a tragic hero, while Chrysalis is more just a tragic character.
Maybe.
Because she's really not a hero.
Now, how do people avoid making or becoming the tragic hero they were not meant to be?
Technically meant to be. A lot of them have to do with an inescapable fate. I mean, pretty much all of the tragic heroes in Greek mythology are, you are destined to kill your father. So the father goes and ships them away somewhere, where they either grow spiteful of the evil tyrant father, or they just end up killing him in a discus competition where the discus goes awry and hits him in the head.
Or blind road rage.
Greek mythology be like that. So, advice how to avoid being a tragic hero. Maybe if you have a destiny about your son is going to kill you, just
make sure your son is dead.
Just straight up kill your son. Make sure you confirm that your son is dead, if you're that worried. Or you can just, keep him around and monitor him.
Yeah, make sure
if he's destined to marry his mom, then just keep an eye on him, so you know where he is.
Yeah.
This entire thing could be solved if he just stayed at home.
Yeah.
And made sure not to marry his mother, who he actually knew was his mother.
But in general is just beware of what's gonna happen. Monitor everything. Not like crazily, but just make sure that you're not following in either someone else's footsteps that you hate, or just
the monitoring things can sometimes end up leading to the tragic downfall. So I just say, maybe don't kill people. Don't marry someone who you don't know, who is older than you, if you're destined to marry your mother. Because if you're destined to marry your mother, marry someone your age or younger. Think about these things rationally.
Yeah.
Okay?
Honestly, it's really be rational.
Make
good decisions.
Do not panic about your prophecy, okay?
Otherwise, it's just gonna go.
Because if you panic and you mess it up, you're gonna mess it all up.
Just like this podcast.
Just like we messed up this podcast. And that's how you... Also, a really, really good idea about how not to be a tragic hero. Don't be an asshole.
Yeah, fair point.
Fair point.
It's
main lesson from this. Don't kill people. Don't marry your mom.
Even if you're not sure they're your mom, don't marry them.
Don't have massive road rage. Don't just slaughter people because they got in your way on the road, because that's not an okay thing to do.
Honestly, there might not be any way to avoid a tragic hero, because no matter what, you could still end up with the same fate, even if you tried to change it.
Yeah.
So, in the end, it really depends.
It really depends whether the fate even lets you change it. But if you can change the fate, don't kill people and think calmly and rationally about the prophecy given to you.
Otherwise, I think that's the only way you could avoid being a tragic hero, is being rational and noticing your problems before they come to bite you in the butt.
So, I consider this podcast to be a tragedy where we didn't realize our mortal flaws of not being able to do a podcast and just plan winging it our first time, wouldn't you?
Yeah, fair point.
Fair point.
Fair point.
This has been Kara
and Sarah
signing out of a podcast that we have no idea what we're doing. Woo!
This podcast was sponsored by
Caffeine
Cocoa Puffs
and sleep deprivedness.
Fair point, fair point.
Fair point.
Wow, that's a lot of fair points.
I mean, fair point.
Yeah!